here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? This is Shaping Success. I'm your host, Wes Tankersley. Today, we're going to do a little bit of bonus coverage on my previous episode with Joshua Coburn. But before we get to that, can you please do me a favor? If you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, we're running a contest right now. Go ahead and like, share, and review it. If you're listening to the episode on Apple Podcasts, take a screenshot of that and post it on your social media. Tag me, and you'll be entered to win a magnet, a sticker, and a hoodie. When we reach 500 of those shares, I'll do a drawing out of those 500 people or 500 different shares. So every time you share, you'll be entered to win. So let's get into this bonus coverage about Joshua Coburn. I had been trying to get Joshua on the live show and podcast for quite a while. He's a busy guy. He's a motivational speaker. He does mindset coaching and a bunch of other things. So it was great to have him on. One of the things that you'll notice about Joshua, if you go and you look him up, the first thing you'll notice is that he is covered in tattoos. He's got a big beard. He's got some body modifications and things like that. But that really doesn't define a person. I've done an episode before, or I've done videos before talking about you can't judge a book by its cover. We'll get into that in a little bit about Josh's book as well. But looking at people, a lot of times people will, make judgment. And it doesn't matter if you're covered in tattoos. It doesn't matter if you have a bunch of body modifications. It doesn't matter if you have a disability, things like that. People often make judgments, and it's very hard sometimes for people to deal with that. But that's a choice that they've made, with tattoos and body modification. And now, more than ever, it's a little bit different because we look at it differently than we did 20 years ago. Small town kid growing up in Ontario, Oregon here. And we had a kid that, went and got a tongue ring, and we had, people get their first tattoos, and it was kind of like, oh, you're a rebel, you're this, you're that. But now it's more of a common thing. It's something that happens a lot more often than it used to. It's a little more, it's considered a form of art and things like that. So it's a little more accepted than it used to be. One of the things I really liked about it was he's turned that into something so you can kind of see out of the corner of your eye people looking and talking about you the way that you look, because it's not like he just has a couple tattoos. It's like he's got them on his face, he's got them on his neck, he's got them all over his chest, his arms, everywhere. He uses that as a conversation piece to get to know people. One of the things he talked about is connecting with people and getting to know people and learn about them, no matter what they look like, who they are, what nationality they are, tattoos, body modification, anything. Just going out and starting conversations with people. And he talked a lot about using that as a conversation piece. When you hear someone snickering about it or making fun of you or just wanting to look at them or having a question, out of the corner of his eye, he sees them pointing or looking or talking, and he uses that as a conversation piece to go up there and go, hey, this is what this is. And do you have any other questions? And then just getting to know people. When you think about that, that's kind of one of those things. I remember sitting in a restaurant a couple of years ago, and my daughter, she's 7 now, but she was 3 or 4, and a gal, the waitress, actually rolled up in a wheelchair. And you know how little kids are, they're always curious, and they always say what's on their mind. It's like, what happened? What happened to her? She's in a wheelchair as she's rolling away. And the really cool thing about it was the lady heard that and then came over and told us the story about how she ended up in a wheelchair. That's the way that I kind of look at it and kind of think about how Josh confronts people or talks to people about his tattoos and his body modifications and things like that. Above and beyond that, he's a motivational speaker, and he was in a place at one point where he was contemplating suicide. And when it came down to it, he went to sleep. He decided that I need to sleep on it. I need to think about it, and changed the thought process and took control of his life and started to go on a different path. He talked about the importance of feelings and how a lot of men, especially men, they hold things in. I'm not saying that women don't do that as well, but men will not talk about things because they've been told that you're not supposed to have feelings. You're not supposed to talk about the situations that you're in. And so he talked about men being able to cry, being able to talk about that, being able to let that stuff out, and that not being a weak thing. And a lot of people look at that as weak. Previously, it's been one of those things where to show emotion, to show feeling is not something that you're supposed to do. So it's really important to get out there and not hold that stuff in and talk about it. He talked about that being kind of like a bomb waiting to go off. By holding that in, you're just taking all that energy inside you and over again, not letting it go, not telling anyone about it. And when that bomb goes off, you either blow up, you explode. It leads to things like suicide and and more problems rather than just talking about it and getting it out there. When I first saw Joshua, it was on TikTok, and he was listening to, not listening to, but if you've been on TikTok, the app, it's a video where you can do 15 to 16 second clips of just videos. The first thing I saw was this big bearded guy, tattooed bearded guy, listening to heavy metal and holding up a little note that had a saying on it. Motivational quote. It was kind of this interesting thing because we talked a little bit about it, because if you get on TikTok, you'll see these people, you can create this text blurbs and point at them. Well, it would say, go after your dreams, follow your dreams, you're in charge of your dreams, or whatever. Like, they would post those little things and then they would point at them as they go on, as they pop up in time. Well, Josh just comes out with this note and he sticks it out there. Well, what he talked about was he's sitting down in the morning and he does post one of those a day. He writes out on a note card something that he's trying to remind himself of, and he wants other people to think of as well, that this is a reminder. These are the things I do for myself every single day. And so he's jamming out to some heavy metal, and then he just pulls the card up and then just points at it and smiles, and it's one of those things that is motivational, right? And a lot of us will post stuff on social media, quotes and things like that. Well, he's creating these quotes as reminders to himself to follow the things that he says. And if you haven't checked out his book, it's called Shit That Needs to Be Said So You Can Kick All the Asses. It's a book full of these quotes. And it's not, I heard him on another podcast and I didn't actually ask him about it, but these are little things in the book is meant to be read as, this is one of the things you read today, or this is one, like to go through, not a book that you just read completely through, but it's something like a reference guide. You open it up and you need some motivation. Read this and here you go. He also talked about cigars because he's kind of a cigar enthusiast, and as another way to have a conversation with someone, sitting down in a cigar lounge and smoking a cigar, which takes, he said about an hour and a half. So it's a good way to have an hour and a half of conversation, and you get different types of people going into that. It's just about connection. It's about making a conversation with someone that you've never been around, someone that you don't know that you would normally talk to. And that's what he really likes about this cigar situation, is that he's able to go into a cigar lounge, pick out a cigar, sit down in the lounge and talk to other people, which is a little bit tougher to do right now with, COVID and this current situation we have, but it gives you a way to connect with people, which leads into his definition of success. That definition of success for him was making people smile, making people happy, and doing everything you can to put as many smiles on the faces of people that you know, or that you learn, or that you're around, people that you build relationships with, making them smile, making them happy. Because if you're not happy with what you're doing, no matter what that is, then what are we here for? What are we going to be? Why are we going to spend our lives being unhappy about everything that we do or things that we do when there's so many positive things in the world that we can look at? And I've said it before, you look at it, the media sells this as a negative thing. I was watching the vice presidential debate last night. I'm just over and over and over again. It's like there's nothing good on either side. All they're doing is talking about negative things people have done. They're trying to defend themselves for the positive things that they've done that no one ever talks about. All they talk about is the negative things. It doesn't matter what side you're on. It's negative either way. There's no positive stuff that came out of the debates that I've watched so far. There's no positive things that come out of that, because if you say something, hey, I did this, well, you did that. Well, hey, I did this, well, you did that. It's like it's just defending and saying that you've done the worst thing. They talk about the positive things that happened, that millions of people haven't died from COVID, but then there's millions of people who have died from COVID, or thousands of people died from COVID, and all they want to do is talk about the negative things. I'm tired of it. I'm over it. I want to find the positive things in life. The problem is we've been so conditioned to look at everything negative and to think about all the things that are negative first instead of the things that are positive, because that's what draws us to whatever it is. That's the emotion that we feel first, is the negative emotion. That's something that I want to challenge you to do. In finding success, you need to be challenged to find the positive things that you do. They always outweigh it. They always outweigh the negative things. But what we do is we give the weight to the negative things. As you go throughout your day to day, I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the positive things that you do. Positives. Get out a piece of paper and tally the positive things that happen today versus the negative things that happen today. Put them on a scale. Look at that. Even if I'm doing like hash marks, all right, say I put in a piece of spaghetti, all right, as my hash mark into a cup, into a positive cup, and then I have a negative cup. And if I put 10 pieces of spaghetti into a positive cup and I put one into a negative cup, which one's going to weigh more? So which one should we put more weight in? The one that has the 10 pieces of spaghetti or the one that puts the one piece of spaghetti? That's what we have to think. That's how we have to think about it. I don't know where the spaghetti thing came from, but if you think about that, there is 10 items in one cup and one item in another cup, right? Which one weighs more? If they're the same exact item, the one with 10, right? And so that's your positive cup. And so you have 10 items in your positive cup and you have one in your negative. Put weight in the positive. Think about that today throughout your day. Again, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, can you please do me a favor? Like, share, and review. As I said before, we're having the contest with you sharing this on your social media. If you share the episode, just if you're wherever you're listening to it, if it's on Apple Podcasts, take a screenshot of the episode that you're listening to, post it on social media and tag me. You'll be entered to win that sticker, magnet, and a hoodie. I'll get the size of whatever hoodie you want. We'll get it embroidered with the Shaping Success logo, and we'll get it mailed off to you. Until next time, I challenge you to find the shape of your success. Have a great day.